Next, a stark reminder of the journey from past to present to future. Christian Marclay's new video installation entitled The Clock worries away obsessively at the human perception of time. Alain de Botton went to investigate.
Human beings have been building all manner of timepieces since the ancient Egyptians first came up with a sundial. However, no clock has ever been devised that can be quite as bizarre and quite as thought-provoking as the one that's just been switched on here at the White Cube Art Gallery in central London. It's simply called The Clock and is made up of 24 hours of footage spliced together from a variety of films, high and low, old and new, everything from Kramer versus Kramer to the 39 Steps. It's ongoing. Let's go and take a look. What unites all these excerpts is that in each one, someone at a certain moment looks at a clock. And if that isn't specific enough, they do so at exactly at the time that it is in the real world. Almost miraculously, day and night, across 24 hours, there will be a movie clip that shows the precise time that it happens to be in the real world right now, synchronized with the accuracy of the finest chronometer. It took Christian Marclay 2 years to make this piece, but really it's a wonder it didn't take longer. The work behind it is phenomenal. This piece isn't just telling us what the time is, it's also suggesting to us the amount of time it took to make. One is left admiring Marclay's tenacity and slightly fearing for his sanity. Given that most of us give up after a few minutes of fast-forwarding the DVD, it's just amazing that Marclay managed to keep going through hours of footage, trying to marry up each segment of the clock with a relevant bit of film, like an angler waiting for a prize catch. And yet, at the same time, Marclay lifts the routine act of looking at the time into a piece of metaphysics, connecting it to the great themes of love, death, and the meaning of our lives. Despite the time difference, I decided to speak to the artist in New York about his piece. It's interesting watching the film with a group of people. There's an atmosphere of anxiety, interesting anxiety. And does that ring any bells?
Very much so, and that anxiety kind of keeps you as a viewer connected. You're spending time being entertained, but at the same time you're always conscious of the time that you've just spent watching this thing. That tension colors the way you, as a viewer, experience the clock. This anxiety over time is a universal one. I think, this piece is very much about the time passing, about mortality. I've called it before, a giant memento mori. There's a lot of reference to life and death, of time passing.
Definitely. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Thank you so much, Christian.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. We are, of course, an extremely time-conscious age. Clocks surround us on all sides. We also treat time as a highly precious commodity. There are few greater sins than to be a few minutes late. This microscopic interest in time is a relatively new phenomenon. For most of human history, our ancestors would just look up at the sky and hazard a rough guess at what sort of time it might be. It's only in the last 200 years or so that we've become this time-obsessed species. And the change has happened for no particularly noble reasons. It's just because, as Benjamin Franklin famously put it, time is money. Modern capitalism guards time very preciously because it knows it to be one of the raw ingredients of production and financial accumulation, just as valuable in its own way as oil or a labor force. As a result, time has become oppressive, something we're continuously aiming to please, tame, and get on top of. It's very hard to escape from a sense of time. It's perhaps only really on our holidays that we manage to avoid time's normal tyranny. There, the hours of the day manage to regain some of their primordial innocence. 9 a.m. doesn't have to be about a meeting for the office, and Sunday evening doesn't have to be about worry and regret. philosophical theories of time tend to distinguish between symbolic time, which is the abstract chronological expanse marked by clocks, and imaginary time, which is the subjective idea we have of how long things last. And as we know, the two are often not exactly in sync, so that we may well imagine a period to have been incredibly long, like on a 5-hour train ride, only to look at a clock and find that the hands have barely moved. And it never races along faster than when things are going well. Perhaps the real goal of life is to be so immersed in an activity that you forget time altogether. You know that you're wasting time when you're too aware of it. Then again, to forget about the passage of time altogether can be a problem of its own. Part of leading your life well means recognizing that you're handling a very finite commodity indeed, more precious even than money. It's terrible to waste people's intelligence or labor, but it's perhaps even worse to waste their time. Every second really does count. And that brings us back to Marclay's The Clock at the White Cube. The piece will be exhibited for 24 hours a day until this Saturday. Marclay's clock is valuable in so many ways, but most of all, it makes us aware of the passage of time in a way that might lead us to wonder whether we're using our time well. Unlike a regular clock, Marclay's piece doesn't just tell us what the time is. It also prompts reflections on whether we and the hundreds of fictional characters out there in the archives, constantly manically checking their watches, are making good use of what remains of our finite days. And on that note, I think I better go in for another look.